Hello and welcome back to the Store Hero podcast. This week we are joined by Donal, co-founder of Nomad the Label based in Sydney, Australia. Donal, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Thomas. Thanks for having me.
Not at all, not at all. That is not an Australian accent. Give us a bit of backstory. Who are you? Where are you from? What are you up to?
Uh, Donal Breslin. I'm originally from Donegal in the northwest of Ireland. Been living in Sydney now in Australia for about 15 years. So first came in 2019 with a tech recruitment company and found it home. And my wife and I met in 2013 and we've been working together ever since. And Nomad the Label, we started about 3.5 years ago. And thankfully, we've been able to grow it to quite a successful brand to today.
Nice, nice, nice. Very interesting. Is this your first venture into e-com, or how did that happen?
Well, originally we had another clothing label. It was a bit more like the boho brand, so probably a bit more of a broader appeal. We used to do a lot of live events at various festivals and markets and so forth. So we were selling that particular brand both at the events as well as online. Learned a lot about Shopify at the time, and we got it relatively successful, but we weren't really pushing it from a marketing standpoint. We weren't advertising on Facebook and Google like we are today. So it was never really going to get to the heights. We were just another Me Too brand. There was a lot of those types of colorful, light, beachy type brands around at the time. And as we know within ecom, you're better off to find that place in the market that's less catered for. Find a customer that's willing to pay you that premium. And we sell a real premium, high quality linen, a lot of pants, a lot of dresses that suit the climate here in Australia. And thankfully, we find a piece of the market for, seems like it's less looked after. It's a woman who's over 40, not just appreciates the products that we sell, but also the service and how we communicate with her. And we've just built a brand that resonates with a target audience that thankfully appreciates what we offer.
Nice. So you're only going about 3.5 years, is that correct?
With Nomad, yes. So say in the first year, as you're often trying to find that product market fit, we're trying a lot of different things. Originally, the idea came out of COVID because we had a lot more time on our hands to begin with. Although we were running the online store, we had a lot of events, say about 6 months of events just taken out of the schedule. And to be fair, it took it even longer before we were able to properly get out there. So my wife, Louisa, had a bit more time on her hands. She, I suppose, was changing in her interests in what she wanted to design in the fashion world. Was more interested in linen and natural fabrics. And although at the time I thought it was a bit crazy to start another brand, all credit to her, she stuck to her guns. I got behind her at the time and took all the learnings that I had from sales and marketing. I had done a lot of work within the sales and marketing community here in Australia, helping a lot of SaaS companies like yourselves when they're coming to the region and build up their go-to-market strategy. So I took a lot of those learnings, applied it to Nomad, and within that, both having good product market fit as well as the marketing, we were able to grow it, say, in the first year about 1 million, second year 3 million, and then last year we were able to get it up to 5 million. So these days we're sort of running, we'll say, over 800,000 Australian dollars per month, and we've been doing that since October last year when we really found the flywheel effect, and has thankfully taken off since that. And yeah, we have big plans going forward of what we want to continue to achieve. The US and Canada has been a big focus for us over the last 6 or so months. And I think we really got a good foothold in that market at the moment. And it's actually about 3/4 of what we're selling in the recent months.
Nice, nice, nice. So an Indigenous Australian brand. How have you found, trying to internationalize and expand into international markets like the US? I suppose it is something that I come across with a lot of brands. I suppose more so from a CAC perspective, it can be quite difficult, maybe not for yourself, but maybe for some brands to think about growing internationally. Obviously, you build up your base in your home country, you gather a bit of brand recognition. And often to expand, we do need to go internationally, but that comes with its own challenges in that the brand recognition that you have at home will not be there in a new market, and then you're off to going into the US. Typically, it's widely known that the customer acquisition costs just generally it's a higher ticket to pay to play there. How has the customer acquisition cost differed from Australia to the US for Nomad?
Yeah, I suppose it's slightly different for us because we have the seasonality. So our summertime, which is primarily our prime time and what we cater to, is the opposite. So we'll just say it's coming into cooler times around April here, and then thankfully in the northern hemisphere it's heating up. So we can like shift our focus. And to be honest, I haven't really seen a
Well,
increase in CAC. So if you will look at the CAC right now, for example, it's considerably cheaper for us to acquire a customer in the US now. The AOV is higher, I would say by about 25%. So obviously that is giving us more leverage to spend more and go after the customer. So actually I haven't found that to be the biggest challenge. We were just applying the formula that had worked. So we have some very successful Facebook ads. They were running for several months in this region, and we could immediately go with successful creative, successful product, the headlines, everything that already had proven to work, and then just turn that on in the US. I think from an operations standpoint and being able to deliver to the customer, well, there's a lot more involved in that. Like Facebook is pretty good. Shopify provides that platform to be able to take it to the market. But unless you can actually do the logistics element, you can manage the returns at scale. They're the challenges that if you really want to take on the market rather than just sort of dipping in and seeing what you can be able to do, when you get it to the sort of point where we have it now, we're a year selling in the market, you want to invest in it and make sure that you're doing it well. And some of the things that we've done is having loop returns, which is an expensive premium solution, but fantastic for going international. We work with DHL Express as well as Seco, who've got an excellent international e-commerce solution, so that we were able to get the product out of country overnight. And in most cases, it will be delivered within 3, 4, 5 days to the US customer. If they need to process a return, I have a brother in California, and then he's actually receiving the returns, he's processing them. And we even got to the point now where he's ready to redispatch them rather than having to send them back here. So it's more operational, and then the customer service and everything that we can be able to respond in a timely manner. So we're using Gorgeous to be able to do that. And we're looking at solutions where we can have somebody on the ground. So within those sort of business hours over in the US, they can be able to respond to those customers. So I'd say that's the greater challenge rather than from a financial standpoint. I think there's a huge market over there. Our product is of interest. It's a little bit different. This woman that I'm talking to you about, this nomad woman, as we call her, must be less catered for. Seems to be a big interest in linen clothing. It's part of some trends that's happening globally. And we've been able to have the creatives that's been able to cut through and gain our interest, and then we can deliver on our promises and actually deliver that service. So our return customer rate is quite high, and we continue to sort of build on that within the customer base that we're building up.
Your poor brother.
He,
We're all cheering you on for international expansion. I'm sure he might have different ideas at this stage.
beginning, he was more like just helping me out because I'd seen that Seco was doing it with another Australian brand. So they would have just a center, and I could see they were using it as their address to send it back to, and they would just create the label inside of Loop. And I've got a brother in California. I wonder would he allow me to get them to send the returns, because to send the returns from a house or an address in the US all the way to Australia would be a lot. It'd be 30, 40 US dollars. Customer's not going to be happy with that, where they can just spend like $8 to $10 and send it to California, and then we'll pay to send it back. But yeah, he was just starting out with maybe a few a week, and now it's up to like maybe 50 because we're sending so many, to the point now where we're looking at solutions like in office and all kinds of things to be able to continue to build it up. And if we can get to a decent scale by, say, next March, I think we'll get a warehouse on the ground somewhere in the US.
Nice. Crawl, walk, run. It sounds like you're already running, which is fantastic. No, that's so interesting to hear that, you found Because usually it's the opposite. You grow the brand at home organically, and then to go into the US is this big investment, and you kind of have to just put up with massively increased CAC. Usually, in most cases, for a couple of months until you gain a bit of brand recognition, figure out your ads, figure out the strategy. Over time it starts to come down a little bit, but it's fantastic to hear that you actually have a lower CAC in the US, and you may have tapped into potentially underserved market there as well. One thing I want to jump into, Donal, is because I suppose it's one thing when we initially caught up, probably last September, October, that interested me about your brand. You guys are obviously moving quite quickly. Was the fact that you were still running the Facebook ad account, and this rings true for a lot of the bigger businesses I am working with, but it's often a misconception, I feel, with a lot of brands, that they get to a point, and often this point is much smaller than it could be, that they need to offload all of the Facebook ads and all of the Google ads to an outside agency or to even somebody else within the business. But for e-commerce, I suppose the paid ads traffic that's coming to your website, that's the bread and butter that drives the whole business. Arguably the most important component of the whole business. Curious to just get your thoughts on that, why you've held on to your own ads, and even just talk to us a little bit about kind of what you do on a day-to-day basis there.
Yeah, so originally I didn't start out with it. I thought, like many others, that you would have to go to an agency, but I was watching what they were doing. I did have my eye on taking it over once I sort of figured it out, and their performance just accelerated when I thought I needed to come in. And thankfully, I did that around about 2 years ago. So it would have been about a year where they were giving fairly average results, to say the least. Maybe they were getting ROAS of like between 2 and 3, and only spending like very minimal budgets per day, like 200 and 300. So nothing to write home about. And I knew from listening to podcasts to, understanding that there are operators out there who have successful stores where that operator is running the ads. And I wasn't necessarily like afraid of media buying and the mathematics that goes into it. In fact, I enjoy all of that. So when I first done it, I done the usual as anybody. They do courses and they get sort of the generic broad knowledge of it. And then you've got to find out, well, what's changing all of that time and keep up with it. For me, the key has been the teamwork that I have with my wife, Louisa. So she actually creates the content. So we actually do most of that in Bali, where we produce the items. And we have beautiful villas. So particularly in the time of the pandemic, they were vacant. So a lot of these beautiful villas shipped doing photo shoots. And then when my wife and the team could get over there, it was a big production. And she only just uses iPhone, but be able to produce high quality videos. And during the evening time, after we come home from our work, we spend a lot of time on that, where between her and I, she'll do the initial editing, and then I will give my piece on it. We'll pick out really nice music to play over these videos. And we enjoy doing that. And then I'll get it into Facebook, and then I'll monitor it and, increase the spend as we go. And, coming back to the spend, these days we spend like over 4,000 USD in a day. That's quite an increase from starting around 200 and building it up. And as you would know, within Facebook, it's easy to spend money. To do it profitably is what the key is. Like if you want to go in, you want to prove that, go inside your Facebook ad account right now and dial it up 10x. See how you get on. Do you continue to be able to have a positive return on your ad spend, where your contribution margin and your actual net profit after you pay your OPEX at the end of the month looks? That is the key. And that's where I spend so much of my time. I know that the creative is huge. That's a very important lever, but also you've got to be able to watch your numbers. And over the course of the last year in particular, like I was speaking to yourself numerous times, but I didn't even know what contribution margin was a year ago. I hadn't ever really heard of it. But since we've been in contact and realized the importance of it, I've been spending so much time figuring it out. And today, the sort of metrics that I look at are very different. I used to go straight to your ROAS and your CPA, which is very important. But these days, I go into your platform, and the two things that I look at is, what did we spend yesterday? What have we been spending over the last the last week, we'll say, for example, and what is the actual contribution margin within that time frame. And that is the key levers within our business, and what I try to keep laser focused on. And when I see things are not looking good, then we go back to the drawing board and we try to figure out, well, what's the creatives is going to drive the result that we're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important point. Even just before we jumped on here, we were quickly chatting about it as well. But I think that's e-commerce. What you want to understand is how can you spend as much money as possible and remain profitable on that money. And
Mm.
if you kind of mentioned the brand that can spend the most money will ultimately win, and I think that's a really, really good way to look at it. And yes, Facebook are very good at taking your money, but if you're in the weeds and you understand how it's being spent and also how to quantify the success of that spend, particularly as it increases, I think you're in such a position of authority within your own business to really grow profitably and sustainably. And it is just interesting, I think, that you have made the decision to continue running the ads yourself. And I've no doubt that I know full well it's testament to the success that you've had over the last couple of months. I think to outsource that through a period of tremendous growth like you've had there, particularly if you were working with an agency where you weren't completely confident in what they were doing before, that would have been a terrifying way to grow the business to the scale that you have in the last 18 months specifically.
I think there's other factors. So you've heard me speak about the nomad woman. So our ideal customer profile seems to be difficult for most people to grasp. But my wife and I and the team that we have here, we're laser focused, and we understand what sort of messaging she will resonate with her, how we can be able to create content that both educates as well as entertains her, so that we're actually capturing her attention and that she discovers us through Facebook. But of course, unless you deliver on your promises, unless you give her the product that she's looking for, like we sell a high quality premium linen, when she gets it through the post and she holds it, in many cases, she's like, yes, she took a chance on us. As you know, there's a lot of, let's just say, underwhelming experiences that you can get through the post. But we deliver on it. If anything, sometimes she's even overpromised. So say underpromised and overdelivered in those situations. And she will then take that onto Facebook and share the positive experience she has. And that sort of stuff is gold. Like coming back to the time frame that you spoke of, we were advertising on Facebook for a couple of years before we had the flywheel effect. So if I think back to last September, and to be fair, we were working quite closely at the time. You didn't have as many customers, I suppose, as you do today. And, I was really keen, and we had a sort of connection, and, you wanted to invest in what we were doing. And I was wanting that support because I'm a ambitious salesperson. Like, I'm a salesman. That's my core competency. And we are vital to the success of any business. But you need some sort of parameters to keep us in check, or else we will just spend too much, or we'll do things that the business can't actually deliver. And there needs to be an equilibrium in place there. So coming into last September, I just feel like we had that flywheel effect where we'd done a lot of advertising. Like the idea that somebody just sees your ad and buys, like that doesn't really happen. It takes a time to build it up. And we were coming into
Great.
that. It would be nice, I know they call it performance marketing and direct marketing, and that they do, but really there's a time period where they warm up, get to know you, build that trust. There's an offer or product they're interested in, and they take it up. And I think last September we just had it all coming together, and then we just had that flywheel effect. And so many women then took a chance on us. We delivered what they were looking for, and then they shared the word. And that positive effect really snowballed through Q4. And, we had some crazy numbers that we were able to pick up. But we did it profitably, which is the most important thing. We did that in a sustainable way. And, I didn't get too carried away, I suppose, in what we were able to achieve. And what I've learned, I suppose, from that there, where we were just scaling, nonstop through that period, is that there'll be times when you actually need to be disciplined. And you need to actually go, let's pull those budgets back at times because there's not as much of an appetite, or there's seasonality. And these are all things that I've sort of learned as you go, that you're constantly learning your experiences of what the market and what your customers' behavior are. And coming back to the main lever of what an operator can do inside an e-com store is, how much are we going to spend? Are we going to be in a position that spending is a lot more, we'll get a positive return and we're still profitable? Or do we need to actually dial that back so that Facebook and Google aren't the only winners out of the revenue that we're taking in?
Yeah, I remember a lot of those calls around September, October, November last year. The level of scale that was just kind of happening on a daily, weekly basis rather than a monthly, yearly basis was pretty off
Mm.
the charts. But it was a phenomenal time for you, obviously.
Mm.
Two things I would love to dive into there. So I suppose one piece I think a lot of brand owners struggle with, and it's there's two pieces within Facebook ads in Meta specifically that people struggle with, in my opinion. One is structuring of the ad account. I might come to the second one first, which is actually just when you talk about creative there, it sounds like you guys have a pretty nailed down creative process to a certain extent. Like, as we all move more and more towards letting Meta make the decisions for us a lot of the time, the one lever that we still have at our disposal is, different creatives.
Mm.
To make that really, really work and to differentiate yourself, you need serious volume of creative, and it all needs to be on point. How do you
Mm.
guys think about trying to match the quality and quantity level of creatives and also keep it somewhat relatively cost efficient?
The cost efficient part, not so much of an issue because we're just using our own generated content. So my wife's actually using an iPhone at the photo shoot, and then we just use Splice, very simple app to be able to edit it, cut it up into the pieces. And we thoroughly enjoy doing that. My wife and I, Louisa, in the evenings. In terms of the quality, the quantity, it's not the focus. I suppose that the quantity is the thing, really, isn't it? Um, I think we'll probably produce 3 to 5 videos each week. Now, should we do more? Absolutely. And I plan to increase that velocity. And that's going to be key to getting us even to that further next level. And the variety, bringing in more carousels, maybe more still images, which we do, but they don't really tend to scale as much. The video, I've had some videos running for like over a year, which you don't really hear too much about. So they're obviously working really well, that we don't need to have lots of new ones. But if there's one thing that we can do, if we're sort of struggling, and then let's say about a week ago or so, we weren't doing that great. Thankfully, Meta seems to sort itself out in recent days and we're performing well now. But if we are struggling, we will spend the time necessary to create a number of ads. And sometimes you think you're onto a winner and then it just slumps, like for no reason. You don't know what it is, but you need to get as many assets into your ad account that gives you the chance to find those winners. And if I was giving advice to anybody listening here today, is find a system that you can be able to create enough content that you will find those winners. And sometimes we have a product that it's okay. It's not one of our best, but we have a brilliant creative and we'll sell it out. So it really does matter to the success of your SKUs as to what products you're actually creatives you've got for those.
Nice. And do you find the UGC based stuff from your customers tends to work a lot better than even some of the photo shoot stuff, even that you are doing with iPhone?
For us, no, not so far. So I appreciate
Okay.
that you do hear it from other brands that UGC is very effective for them, but it's more from an organic standpoint that we will do that. I haven't had any organic that has scaled that much where I could
Okay.
say that we made a lot of money from it. Where these videos I'm talking about, we've made over 300 of them over the course of the last, say, year or so. And we actually have them on VideoWise, which we place on the product page, just like the story widget underneath the add to cart. So we get
Really
the
cool.
customer, yeah, and their shoppable videos and everything. Because we're producing that many videos that I want to be able to, if you like, repurpose them on the site as well. So no,
Hmm.
the UGC hasn't necessarily been a hit for us, but we have more of a gifting program in place right now, and we're building up more, say, micro influencers from various parts of the world. So it is part of our repertoire. But are those videos scaling inside Facebook? Not for us so far, anyway.
Okay. That makes sense. And in terms of, I suppose, your approach to managing the ad account specifically, there's tons of different ways, obviously,
Yeah.
to kind of get into the weeds of actually managing a Meta ad account for a brand like yourself. Would you be able to kind of roughly talk through how you talk about structuring it, how you talk about measuring, how you talk about efficiencies? within the Meta account specifically?
Yeah, so we talk about the structure to begin with. The first sort of standout would be geography. So I would have my US and Canada ads, and I will mostly just be ASC within that. But I will also be within that. In some cases, we may have a manual campaign as well, and we may use dynamic ad creatives within that so that the algorithm can work out which one is the most successful and allocate more budget to that. So we'll have that for North America. Catalog ads, very successful for us in recent months. I'd suggest anybody who's not using catalog ads, if you have a wide range of products, just say you have more than 100 SKUs, I would definitely give it a go. Just to give you a demonstration, Meta obviously is putting emphasis on it because it has got a part of the ASC campaigns right now. So definitely give it a try. That's been quite successful for us. So we'll have that for North America as well. So maybe 3 campaigns going there. And then we'll have Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. Depends on what regions we're sort of going after. We'll actually have a campaign for that. I like to keep things quite simple, and I think that is rewarded. The algorithm doesn't like when you have too many campaigns and they're overlapping, just keeping it super simple. And I suppose the things that I'm looking at, I would turn off a lot less ads now. Like, I do put the trust in the algorithm and in the system that it will be able to pick those winners and allocate the budget appropriately to the ones that are performing well and that will be able to scale. I'm always looking at, the ROAS, the cost per acquisition costs, trying to make some judgments as to what I need to be able to keep on. I might move things around if I find a winner. So I suppose you'll hear a lot of talk about having a testing campaign and then having your scaling campaign. So I wouldn't say that I apply that necessarily, because I want both to be a scaling campaign, but I do start small, try to find those winners, and then I'll really get behind it, where I'll put it into a campaign that's got a lot more budget and then really spend more and more, depending on to where it hits that point where it's not worth it anymore.
Right, wait a second. I'll edit this out. Okay, that's perfect. And in terms of, I suppose, okay, think about this. We have a new potential hero product. We're coming into summer 25. How many different types of tests are you running in the ad account? Are they more at an ad level, on a creative level? Are they more at an ad set level, or on a campaign level? Be interesting just to get your kind of thoughts on that.
Yeah, I suppose I'd apply it to whenever we are dropping a collection, and it depends how many actual products are within it, but we will have a video, a creative for each one of them. So let's just say on average that could be looking from 6 to 8, and I will create an ad, and I will have an ad set specific to that, and then I will let that run from a Thursday when we drop it through to a Sunday, and then I have a good gauge on which one of those is the most popular, and then I will build that and put it into my ASC campaign, and that's where we'll get the most spend. And then after that sort of maybe diminishes a little bit, and I've got more data the week after, and then I will start moving them up to the ASC. So that's typically how I would work it, and that keeps us going for around a month or so, while I still have my evergreen ads going, of course. And then we have another collection, and during this sort of peak season, that is so much fuel on the fire that we constantly have new creatives and something that we're really sort of getting behind. And usually our inventory levels are going to be very high within the first month that we're dropping something. So we're all good. Sometimes, in fact, it happens all the time, in fact, and too much, where we can't keep up. We have a very sort of like handmade artisan type of product, and we have limited supply. So often we have to turn off ads because we just haven't been able to, we can't fulfill anymore, and we have to turn it off. So we are working on that, but it's a conundrum that we face, unfortunately.
And you kind of mentioned that you're daily looking at your spend and your contribution margin effect within Store Hero, but more so directly in the Meta ads account. Are you running cost controls, or how do you think about efficiencies, or how do you think about budget spend? I think you mentioned roughly around 4K per day.
Yeah, so 4K at the moment, say USD. I think when it comes to, I'm mostly interested in what the cost of acquisition is. As
Okay.
long as I can stay within, say, USD of 50, I can continue to increase my budgets.
Okay.
I know my unit economics. I know how much I can actually spend. So as long as the cost acquisition doesn't blow out, that's when I would need to correct, of course, and decrease my budgets. But as long as it's within the sort of parameters that I've set, that I know that we're profitable, then I can continue to scale the account.
Okay, so we've kind of touched on day to day, touched on ads, some of the key KPIs that you look at. I suppose, what does your day to day look like running the business aside from running Meta? I know you do some other bits and pieces there. It isn't all just living in Meta every day. I think you've moved warehouse a couple of times in the last year as well.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't do much in Meta during the 9 to 5. I actually work in my office here, and we have a large warehouse now. It's about 600 square meters. We moved back last October, which is a bit crazy, but actually turned out to be the best thing we ever did. So we moved warehouses because we just outgrew it twice within maybe about 18 to 24 months.
Wow.
Just couldn't be able to keep up with it. I'm actually still paying for the other warehouse because they haven't been able to find anybody to take it. I still have a lease until September. The market apparently isn't great for it, so I still have to pay it. But it was absolute right thing to do because we grew substantially, and we probably have our warehouse now is about 4 times the size of what we had before. And there's absolutely no way that we would have been able to keep the operations going to what we have it right now. And I think we've got it pretty much well humming. We have so much more like equipment. We're just so set up with the best of everything that everybody who works here can be efficient, and they have the tools necessary to do their job well. So I'm like the key operator within the business. I designed all of the systems. Technology is the backbone of pretty much everything that we do. I have a passion for selecting the software. I probably didn't do anything that was hugely unique. I just went out and found out what the best people in ecom are doing, and I got the software maybe before we even maybe needed it. Both that being things such as like Gorgeous and Loop, etc., ShipStation, you name it, and just got all the best of breed software within ecom, and that's definitely supported our growth and been able to scale the operations to what we have today. We have about, including my wife and I think we have about 11 people working here with us. Most of these people, like they've never even worked in warehousing. Some of them actually in recent times, we took a lot more in-house when it came to marketing. Previously, we sort of had dipped our toe in working with agencies, but it never really worked perfectly for us. And we've actually found it much better to go out and find people to come in from, say, Shopify coordination, digital marketing, customer service, social media management, and actually having that in the warehouse in the office with us every day just creates a much more dynamic and better team all working together collaboratively. So I actually think that that is the most important, is that you can be able to, if you want to scale, like if you just want to get product market fit and you want to sell like $1 million in a year and effectively you just have yourself a job, well, that's different. But if you want to scale to something that maybe one day you would like to get acquired and you can ride off into the sunset, with your retirement fund, then you're going to have to scale, and you're going to have to find somebody in that instance is going to be either able to partner with you, understand your business inside out. Because coming back to where we started all this conversation is that anybody can spend on Facebook. Literally anybody can give Zuckerberg more and more money, but can they actually do it profitably and grow their spend and be able to do that at scale and then have enough left over that they've got a net profit that's reasonable for the investment of what they've actually done, both resources and money throughout the year, and that maybe down the track you'll be able to get acquired. Now that's a whole different story, and people who are just product orientated probably will never get there without having somebody that can be able to assist them. And do you really want to put all of your eggs in the basket of an agency? I would rather be the master of my own destiny and control that and understand the ins and outs of your business, and most particularly the market and the customer that you're trying to target. And for me, it's paramount that I am the person who's driving that. LinkedIn is probably the best. You'll find me there, Donal Breslin. Thanks, Thomas. Great talking to you.